A colleague of mine once said, "I'm the nicest person that you don't know a thing about." She was explaining her approach to personal and professional relationships at work. I remember her as, one of the most engaging, cooperative, enthusiastic, and conscientious people that I ever worked with. But while other people in our office were discussing any variety of personal issues, holding forth on controversial topics, or just flat out running their mouths, she would simply respond with, "That's nice." It wasn't until much later, when we reconnected, that I got to know her on a personal level.
How do you view the people you work with? How do you get along with people on your team? Are you someone who shares freely what's going on in your life, or do you just do your job and go home? Do you find that your coworkers are also your friends, or do your friendships mostly lie outside of work? These are important questions.
82% of people say they vent about personal problems with people at work. In another survey, 82% of people say they have at least one friend at work, while 75% say they have a best friend. The average number of friends at work is 5. But is this the right way to approach work relationships? Should you be friends with the people you work with?
So, my chili was done, and we were just kicking back on the patio with my son and his partner. Ash just started a new job a few months ago and was telling us that their manager is trying really hard to instill a sense of camaraderie at the store. This manager is encouraging everyone who works there to be friends. I ask him a few questions and find out that the manager is not much older than the people she's managing, and actually, this is her first manager role. My HR spidey sense goes off, and I ask him, "Well, are you comfortable with this?" Well, the response was, "It's fine until it's not." You see, in a short time, employees have been accused of being uncooperative or disloyal because they don't want to go along and be friends. Shift leads have acted inappropriately and defended their actions, saying, "Well, we just wanted to be friends." And people have confided sensitive things to others, only to have those things sort of become common knowledge. In other words, well, it's not going real well.
In lesson 9, we start the joining stage of the career cycle. And what does this mean? This is a series of actions that you take to start your new job just right. Most of the topics in the lesson deal with the critical task of establishing a connection with your boss by making them your most valued customer. Just like in the previous stages of the career cycle, you'll have to leverage your interpersonal skills to align with your new boss, understand their priorities, their top priorities, and hopefully nail the first tasks you're given.
Additionally, you'll have to get to know the people on your new team. In some cases, companies have formalized onboarding or rotational programs that give structure to this process. In most cases, though, you'll simply get a walk around while you shake hands, smile, try to remember the names of everyone you meet. Depending on the networking you did to get the job, you might already know a few people. Or, if this was a job that came from an internship or promotion, you may already be familiar with everyone on the team. In any case, it's important to treat your first days in your new job seriously and professionally.
Most full-time workers will spend more time with their coworkers than they will with their own families. And according to SHRM, these connections are very important. Nearly 2/3 of employees who say they have 6 to 25 workplace friends say they love their company, while only half of people with 1 to 5 friends and 24% of people with no workplace friends say they love their company. Additionally, employees who have friends at work are less likely to take an offer and leave the organization. Interesting, right? 62% of employees with 1 to 5 workplace friends say they would reject a job offer, and that goes up to 70% for people with 6 to 25 friends. However, less than 20% of people state that they've kept in touch with close friends that they had at the workplace after actually leaving the job. So going back to the data circles you had to fill in the targeting stage, you can see why learning as much as possible about workplace environment and people you'd work with is so very important and crucial to your success. Workplace friendships contribute significantly to employee satisfaction and ultimately longevity at the organization.
This trend is more prevalent in younger workers. While a third of those 18 to 24 said workplace friendships were important, only 5% of those 55 to 65 felt that way. Most people, over 3/4, say that they're satisfied with the number of friends that they have. But again, this is impacted by employee age and level of hierarchy in the company. Senior managers, who tend to be older than entry-level or frontline employees, are twice as likely to say that they have too many workplace friends. So who's right? Should you try to be friends with the people you work with, like Ash's new manager was suggesting? Or should you be like my former colleague, the nicest person you don't know a thing about?
Ultimately, it's up to you, but it's also up to the people you work with. For some people, friendly relations and even personal friendships with their coworkers is very important. For others, professional working relationship is all that's needed. The first thing you want to understand is that you don't want to push or force relationships. Let them happen as you interact with people. This is especially true of your relationship with your boss. Remember, they are your boss. Don't forget that. Lesson 9 includes great advice on developing that relationship.
Next, be considerate. Your coworkers will have diverse personal lives. Some have families, some are single. Most will already have developed interests. Instead of coming in and talking about what you like to do, ask questions. It's perfectly acceptable to ask a coworker to grab a coffee or set up a quick conversation to get to know them. Use it as a time to understand how your jobs overlap or influence each other, but use your interpersonal skills at the beginning to get to know them. Then interact with them on their terms. For example, you may be fine with grabbing a drink at the bar after work, but your coworker may not drink. Don't simply write people off because they don't do the things that you do.
Related to being considerate, don't be cliquey. You will almost certainly find people with shared interest, but if you limit your interactions to just a select few, all you're doing is heading back to middle school. Legit, heading back to middle school. Not only do you miss out on developing connections, you'll likely alienate people as well.
Actually, you've already been given a perfect model for building relationships at work. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of alignment.
The first step in aligning is to get past the like and trust threshold as you align to connect and form relationships. Going back to being considerate and not cliquey is why you want to not just focus on people who are just like you, but otherwise spend your first days getting to know everybody at the organization or on your team. Remember, at this point, all work relationships are professional, so don't overshare or try to shock with outrageous statements, and be sure to stay away from discussing controversial issues like politics. Next, after you've actually built the trust, you'll align your understanding. Many onboarding processes will formalize this process for you as you move from section to section to understand what they do and how they fit in the overall picture. If you don't treat this step correctly, you'll miss out on a crucial step in building workplace relationships that will be beneficial for you, and you will be beneficial for them in the future.
People like to talk about what they do. It's a way of showing pride in their work. So bring a notebook and ask lots of open questions. Take notes and follow up so that you know how their job impacts the job you'll do. To get a complete picture, focus on understanding 3 key areas: the results they have to deliver to meet their objectives and the skills it takes to do that, the behaviors and attitudes expected in this role in order to fit into the operation, and the things that motivate them to do this job and have the drive to get the job done. By understanding what people do, how they do it, and why they do it, you will not only see how their job fits in with yours, you get to see how you can fit in with them.
Once you've crossed the understanding threshold, it's time to move on to matching with people by aligning with their skills, fit, and drive. Remember that in this case, matching isn't just finding people with the same skills, fit, and drive as you. That'd be cliquey. It also means finding people who are complementary to you.
So here's an example. Let's say you are an extrovert, an outgoing person, kind of like me. You have an expressive personality and feel like you make friends easily, kind of like me. A coworker that you just met comes across as more analytical and may not seem like they would become a workplace friend because they aren't as outgoing and seem more reserved and keep to themselves. Using this process, you may find out that you have complementary skills. You may find out that although your roles require different workplace behaviors, you're both driven to perform by similar motivators. If all you based your interaction on was personality, you'd miss out on what could be a very strong and mutually beneficial workplace relationship. So make sure that you're not just building a relationship based on similar personality factors. I know that I have introverted friends at the workplace, and honestly, they have been mutually beneficial for me.
So, as I said before, are you like Ash's manager who wants everybody to be friends and wants all the coworkers to be on friendly relations? Or are you like my former colleague who's the nicest person you don't know a thing about? I'll leave you with this to consider. In 1869, John Stuart Mill, an English philosopher, stated the following: "So long as an opinion is strongly rooted in the feelings, it gains rather than loses in stability by having a preponderating weight of argument against it. For if it were accepted as the result of argument, the refutation of the argument might shake the solidity of the conviction. But when it rests solely on feeling, worse it fares in argumentative contest. The more persuaded adherents are that their feelings must have some deeper ground, which the arguments do not reach. And while the feeling remains, it is always throwing up fresh entrenchments of argument to repair any breach made in the old." In other words, when someone believes something that's based on feelings rather than fact, they'll probably end up believing it even more deeply and for a longer period of time if you disagree with them, even if you provide facts. By using the alignment steps to form and then strengthen your work relationships, you establish a foundation for those relationships based on fact rather than just feelings. Why should you care? Well, ultimately, due to promotions and growth, you may find yourself managing or maybe even being managed by someone you consider a friend. One day you may leave and you may find yourself competing with a friend. Or worse, something unfortunate may happen, and you're put into a position of having to choose sides between your friend and your job. I've seen all of these scenarios happen at work multiple times, and in general, very few of them turn out well for any of the parties involved. When facts precede feelings, you have a stronger foundation that allows you to act objectively rather than subjectively. By the way, Mill's quote is also a good reason why you should never get into an argument with someone on the internet. It's almost as good as Mark Twain's "never get into an argument with an idiot. They'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience." Thanks. Take care.